At a time when we are able to perceive the infinitely small, microscopic organisms such as microbes, mites, or bacteria, what do we know about the giants that have walked the earth of our planet? The elephant, the rhinoceros, the giraffe, the brown bear, or the blue whale are among the largest and fattest animals of our era. These animals, no matter how big or imposing they are, have managed to survive in their environment and to develop extraordinary adaptation skills to use their extraordinary size as an asset. It is incredible to think that the blue whale, which is on the highest step of the podium, can measure more than 30 meters or 100 feet and weigh up to 170 tons. If it is able to move despite such dizzying measurements, it is only because it evolves in an aquatic environment. The buoyancy of the water allows it to support its own weight, to move around in the ocean, to feed itself, and to reproduce. On land, its organs and bones would crumble under its weight. Millions of years ago, even more impressive animals lived on our planet. Animals that, if they were still present today, would change the face of the earth. These titans from another world have managed to survive for millions of years. They have made their place in the cycle of life and have marked the history of the planet. What is quite surprising is that, unlike the whale, they did not all live in the water. Some walked on land. Others even managed to tame the sky. What were these animals? What did they look like? How could their skeletons support so much weight? How did their morphology allow them to move despite such extraordinary measurements, whether in water, on land, or even in the air? How did their metabolism allow them to survive? What is the largest animal of all time? Dear traveler, welcome. Today we will try to answer all these questions through a time travel to the land of prehistoric giants. But before leaving for a new adventure, think of liking the video and subscribing to the channel to not miss anything. Thank you, and have a nice trip. I hope that this trip to the land of giants will allow you to quench your thirst for discovery and curiosity. During our explorations, we will learn a lot about these exceptional animals. The great difficulty we will have to face, however, is time. As you know, these behemoths lived millions of years ago. Tracing their history, our history, after so many millions of years is far from being an easy thing. However, contemporary science and technology have made it possible to study and experiment with hypotheses. Some of them have been approved by the majority of scientists and are thus attested. Others are still in the state of supposition. But doesn't the very essence of science hold its origins in suppositions? In this journey, I propose to immerse you in an extraordinary world. A world that is both new and old. It is new for us, and yet it existed millions of years ago. This world is 1,000 miles from what you can imagine. We will meet animals that lived in our place on Earth millions of years before us. Many species are waiting for us. Get ready, the journey begins now. Bugs. You're probably surprised. Isn't the land of giants more like the land of dinosaurs? Before the appearance of man, the Earth was populated by gigantic animals. The planet was their domain, and they reigned supreme. Indeed, the era of the dinosaurs has seen some real titans. But it is not only among dinosaurs that we can meet extraordinary specimens with extraordinary dimensions. Let's go. Let's go in search of the biggest insects the Earth has ever known. To put you in time, we are currently in the Carboniferous period. When I mentioned the giants, you didn't expect us to talk about insects, did you? But I can assure you that they do belong here. You'll soon find out. Let's start by familiarizing ourselves with our new environment. We have a slightly swampy landscape in front of us, with plants such as rhynia, Relimia bushes, or Leclercia lycopods. In the distance are the tallest trees of that time. The one you see here is an Archaeopterus. It can reach almost 40 meters or 130 feet high. It could be related to our current fir trees. Calm and serenity seem to reign. Everything seems peaceful. Except for the feeling of being immensely small in front of these majestic trees, you are quiet, admiring, and nothing makes you feel uncomfortable. But in a few minutes, things might change. Do you hear that buzzing sound? It seems far away, and at the same time, it's very noticeable. It sounds like the noise drones make when they fly over an area. However, I assure you that such a phenomenon would be an obvious anachronism. No such flying machine has flown over the surface of the Earth at the time we are now. There is no doubt about it. It is indeed not a remote-controlled machine, but an animal that you hear. To be precise, it's even a flying insect. Look in the direction of those trees. I present to you a giant dragonfly, the Meganeura dragonfly. As you can see, it is as fast as it is impressive. After studying its skeleton and crossing the information that scientists have on this insect and its environment, we suppose that the giant dragonfly Meganeura could reach 70 kilometers per hour, or 40 miles per hour. Its aerial virtuosity makes it a formidable predator because it flies faster than most of its prey. It can suddenly change course, reverse, or hover, thanks to its 4 wings capable of moving independently. Our Meganeura is nowhere near the top speed of 90 kilometers per hour, or 55 miles per hour, of our modern dragonflies. However, it is almost 5 to 7 times larger. If today's dragonflies feed mainly on insects and larvae, the giant dragonfly varies the pleasure. I reassure you, you do not risk anything. The small reptiles, them, have to worry. Meganeura's menu is made up of insects, small amphibians, and even reptiles, depending on the occasion. This dragonfly has 2 pairs of wings. The largest of these 2 pairs can reach between 70 and 75 centimeters, or 30 inches of wingspan. To give you something to compare it to, the distance between its 2 wings is about the same as the distance between the 2 wingtips of the sharp-shinned hawk, a raptor that specializes in catching birds, small mammals, lizards, and frogs. The dragonfly is extraordinary, and its flight is like a dance. It can fly forward, backward, upside down, or make extremely tight turns. But don't be fooled by its beauty. To feed, she is merciless. It is a very good hunter. She is a flying ace perfectly equipped to survive in her environment. If she is as greedy as her offspring, the other insects have something to worry about. If we could zoom in on certain parts of her body, you would see that her eyes give her a 360-degree view, that her legs are equipped with small hooks, and that her jaw and mandibles are very powerful. It can see all around it, grab its preys, cut them up, shred them, and swallow them. There is another detail that you should also observe in this creature. Look at its abdomen and flanks. You see these little holes that seem to open and reform, a bit like trapdoors. These are spiracles. These spiracles pump air into the dragonfly's body through its respiratory system. It is very different from our pulmonary system, but it is efficient. Still, to make powerful muscles work, a lot of oxygen is needed, and the spiracle system is not nearly enough. This is probably why dragonflies today are 6 to 7 times smaller than our giant dragonfly species. You may wonder why this insect was so big. You'll soon find out. It's far from being the only one. One of the explanations put forward by scientists lies in the oxygen content. The oxygen level in the Carboniferous period was higher. Today it is 21%, but at that time it was about 35%. This means that for every breath the dragonfly's body receives much more oxygen than it would today. This assumption would explain why insects were so much bigger, but also how such a heavy insect could manage to fly. Flight requires strong muscles and a lot of energy. Oxygen is one of the essential keys to flight. However, as we saw earlier, spiracles have their limits. Only a much higher oxygen content than nowadays could explain the feat the giant dragonfly was capable of. Let us leave our here to its hunting prey to take again the road. We have an appointment with a millipede, and not just anyone. If I tell you millipede a few minutes ago, you would have probably imagined a small beast of about 10 centimeters. But now that you've met the giant dragonfly, you'll know that it is definitely bigger than that. Arthropleura was a kind of arthropod, a distant cousin of millipedes, which lived in the Carboniferous period in a continent that no longer exists today, Laurasia. It was as long as a city car and was almost 3 meters or 10 feet long. Its name means articulated ribs in Greek and illustrates its flattened body, composed of about 30 articulated segments. Each of these segments is covered by 2 side plates and a central plate. If it is long, it is also very wide, about 50 centimeters or 20 inches for the biggest. In terms of proportions, it could have competed with the alligator. Can you believe it? Never before watching this video would you have thought that a millipede could be compared to an alligator. It would have seemed completely unbelievable to you. Well, now you know that in the Carboniferous it is possible. Let's get a little closer. We have absolutely nothing to fear from him. For a long time it was thought to be a carnivore, but we now know that it fed on ferns, horsetails, and lycopods, plants that were common in the Carboniferous. At least that's what paleontologists think, after studying the remains of the animal, whose remains and traces of spores were found in their digestive tract. To feed itself, it uses its 2 claws and its powerful jaw. But to protect itself from predators, it is rather on its carapace with any test that it must count, and also a little on its charisma. Yet even if he is not very well armed to defend himself, he does as if. Look at him. He stands up like a cobra to impress predators. Most of the time the subterfuge works. In the arthropod family, there is another specimen that I would like to introduce to you. If it enjoys the aquatic environment, it is still an arthropod and deserves to be on the podium of the giants within its category. Here is the Jaekelopterus. It is associated with the Devonian, but there are fossils dating from the Carboniferous. This giant aquatic scorpion measures 2 meters 50 or 8 feet long. Jaekelopterus rhenaniae was the giant of its family, and according to some sources it could reach a much larger size, up to 3 meters 60 or 12 feet for the most impressive. It probably roamed lakes and rivers, and, unlike other aquatic animals, it had a fairly clear and precise view of its environment. Its eyes were equipped with ommatidia, which in turn were equipped with a cylinder of lenses that refracted light and transmitted it to sensory cells. The light signals are converted into nerve signals and processed in the central nervous system. In other words, it perceives contours better, even in low light conditions, as it can be the case underwater. This is an asset to hunt its prey and to keep itself in ambush. So much for our little tour of giant insects. Did you remember why insects were so big in the Carboniferous and early Permian periods? We mentioned it briefly when we studied the giant dragonfly. The most likely hypothesis is the much higher oxygen content in the air. Some experiments have been conducted and are still conducted on the subject. The first results show that the oxygen level could have influenced their size. What about taking your mask and snorkel and going for a breath of fresh air in the open sea? We are about to start our journey in the world's oceans. This time we are in the Trias. The first animal we will meet is a carnivore. This time it is a lizardfish that awaits us. It is indeed a member of the family of ichthyosaurs. This marine reptile, which roamed the seas several million years ago now, is called Shonisaurus sicaniensis and could reach 21 meters or 70 feet long. It is one of the largest marine animals our planet has ever known. Let's get a little closer to admire the teeth of the reptile. The teeth are quite impressive, aren't they? You should know that the diameter of their roots is 6 centimeters or 12 inches in diameter. You can imagine with such teeth, our specimen is a beautiful baby of several tons. According to the last estimates, it could reach 20 tons to be more precise. It is therefore part of the great family of the largest marine animals of all time. But unfortunately for fish and other marine animals, he was far from being the only one to hunt in the open sea. We are now entering the Jurassic period, and the predator that awaits us is just as monstrous as the one we just left. The head of this predator alone is the size of a human, about 6 feet tall. His jaw is a real killing machine. He was at the top of the pyramid, and a hunter feared by all. This presentation probably doesn't say much, but I assure you that you have to see it with your own eyes. This is the Pliosaurus. Its appearance, even at the somewhat distant distance where we are, is impressive. I'll let you imagine how you would feel if you were only a few dozen centimeters away from its side. Here it is approaching. I've given you the size of his head, but I haven't gotten to the other parts of his body yet. As you can see, he is doing pretty well in the water. This is thanks to his 4 fins. The front flipper is 2 meters 75 or 9 feet long. These 4 giant fins are necessary to move the 14 meters or 46 feet long and the 50 tons of this giant of the sea. It is a real sea monster. It dominates the area and reigns supreme. No predator would dare to attack him unless he has totally lost his mind. Observe its jaws. They are formidable weapons. He is equipped to kill. The first teeth located at the front are like blades, sharp and perfectly sharpened. They are long and wide. These teeth are used to seize the prey and never let it go. The following teeth are smaller, but just as impressive. They will shred and crush the prey. Once the mouth of the Pliosaurus is closed on its victim, the latter has no chance of getting out alive. It never misses its target. As we have seen, and we will see again, water is a privileged environment for large animals. Their morphology is often a handicap on dry land. They have to compensate this handicap with different stratagems to survive. The bearing capacity of water makes things easier for them. They move more easily. This is the case of the Pliosaurus. The water offers him a certain ease in spite of his weight and his size. However, its extreme measurements are also its only weak point, the lack of discretion for hunting. It is visible from afar with its imposing size. The Pliosaurus has nevertheless more than one trick up its sleeve. Its fins are long, but they are also robust and powerful. Its visibility, which could be a hindrance to bounty hunting on board, is largely compensated by the speed of action it is capable of. Experts, scientists, and paleontologists have studied the skeleton of the animal and the morphology of its fins. According to their respective conclusions, the animal mastered swimming perfectly and could probably reach a speed of 30 kilometers per hour, or 20 miles per hour. It catapulted itself into the water and swooped down on its victim by surprise. From then on, it had no time to react and no chance to escape. Mosasaurs are one of the large marine reptiles that lived in the Cretaceous period. Most of the members of this unusual family have quite exceptional dimensions, but the biggest of them is Mosasaurus. 18 meters or 60 feet long, it terrorized the seas of the planet. It is an aquatic animal, which, like the whales or the dolphins that you know well, breathed in the open air. It looks a bit like a giant monitor with turtle legs and a fishtail. Its dentition leaves no doubt about its diet. It is a carnivore. He is greedy, but the least we can say is that he is not difficult. It can also throw its devotion on a turtle, a squid, a fish, or even a member of the family of pliosaurs or pterosaurs. Fierce, fast, and aggressive, no rival could compete with him on his territory. Its imposing size, its power, and its terrible jaw got the better of the rivals who were foolish enough to attack it. Let's leave the Mosasaurus to meet another aquatic phenomenon. It also lived in the Cretaceous period, but it had already conquered the sea in the Triassic period. This time, it is an aquatic animal of a completely different kind that awaits us. If it is totally different from the previous ones, I don't promise you that it will be less scary. This one lived in the Paleocene era. To all those who have a phobia of snakes, prepare yourself psychologically and emotionally for what you are about to see. Boas, pythons, and anacondas are some of the largest specimens of snakes we know today, and they are without a doubt the sworn enemies of ophiophobes. But this snake that you are about to meet exceeds in every way everything you can know or see in animal reports. Facing you is the Titanoboa. Its vertebrae are at least 5 times bigger than those of the largest anaconda species in the world today. It exceeds it largely in length, but also in width, 80 centimeters or 30 inches in diameter. Can you believe it? The circumference of its body is gigantic compared to what we know of current snakes. Its weight is just as impressive. To give you a little idea on the matter, know that the giant anaconda is one of the heaviest. Its weight can reach 250 kilograms or 550 pounds. So, with this valuable information, can you deduce the weight of the Titanoboa? It can weigh more than 1 ton. It is indeed an aquatic snake. We have not yet mentioned the length of the snake, but as you can imagine, this too is beyond comprehension. It is almost 14 meters or 46 feet long. As you have seen so far, the big problem with these behemoths is their movement. It takes a lot of energy to move, but also a skeleton and an organism adapted enough to support such a load. For our Titanoboa, the only possibility to overcome the problem of its colossal weight is water. It is only in this universe that he can move without difficulty. On dry land, things would probably have been quite different, and the movements much more complicated. Scientists believe, after numerous studies on the skeleton, but also on its diet and its environment, that the snake had to live in an aquatic environment. There is no doubt that it had no shortage of prey, and it was spoilt for choice. He was an outstanding hunter, and he did not have many predators who could match his power and charisma. His jaw was impressive. He could certainly gobble up a man as easily as you gobble up a piece of candy. This giant of the sea is terrifying. You'd think it came straight out of the worst disaster scenarios of the 7th art. However, it really existed and lived in the Miocene epoch. Its predatory instinct and its aggressiveness make it terribly dangerous. Its imposing size makes it all the more formidable. 18 meters long, or 60 feet, it weighs about 50 tons, and the opening of its mouth reaches 2 meters 10, or 7 feet. It can therefore swallow a man with disconcerting ease. The Megalodon has a very particular jaw. If you are brave enough, you will be able to see by approaching a little more the opening of its mouth that this one is equipped with several rows of teeth, 250 sharp blades to be precise. Then, by observing more closely one of its teeth, you can see that it is triangular in shape, very sharp and perfectly sharpened. But that's not all. You can also see that the 2 edges of the perfectly symmetrical tooth are serrated. Each edge is like a serrated knife. They are therefore terribly effective when it comes to killing and devouring prey. It only takes a few minutes to swallow its victim completely. To give you an idea, a baby megalodon is the same size as an adult great white shark. I let you imagine what a male or a female in its prime could do. It is therefore part of the privileged category of super predators. He is at the top of the chain and fears nothing and nobody. How about a little emotional pose next to an emblematic animal of our oceans, as incredible as exceptional? Gigantic doesn't necessarily mean dangerous. If it is the case of the Megalodon, the one we have an appointment with now is as harmless as a cow can be. Come on, follow me. I'll take you to meet the blue whale. It is the largest mammal in our world today, but it is also the largest mammal that has ever lived on our planet. It would have appeared during the Pleistocene. Yes, you heard right, the blue whale. If it is impressive by its size, it is also an animal that has been roaming our oceans for nearly 1.5 million years. It has crossed the millennia. It has undoubtedly met prehistoric animals that are now extinct, and it has crossed all the eras until today, from the discovery of fire to the first trip to the moon, through the Roman conquest or the discovery of the New World. In each of these eras, the blue whale was there, sailing the oceans to the four corners of the planet. Today, threatened with extinction, it is an absolutely incredible marine mammal that has its place among the giants of our planet. You know that it weighs a lot, but do you know its exact weight? It can reach 170 tons. Her tongue alone weighs 4 tons. Her heart weighs about 500 kilograms, or 1,100 pounds. You can imagine the size and weight of this organ. It is phenomenal. But these completely disproportionate dimensions are justified. A whale heartbeat lasts almost 2 seconds. Depending on its physical activity, feeding, diving, and other, its heart activity is modulated. The heart rate oscillates between 2 and 37 beats per minute. Measuring almost 30 meters or 100 feet long, the vascular and blood system of the blue whale is dizzying. The length of the cetacean's blood system is beyond imagination. In humans, the blood vessels put end to end represent nearly 100,000 kilometers or 62,000 miles. Impressive, isn't it? In our cetacean, it can reach 1 million kilometers or 620,000 miles. The arteries are so big that you could swim inside them. To maintain such a network, an organ was needed to match the task: a massive, robust, and powerful heart. You can hear the heart activity of the whale from almost 3 kilometers or 2 miles away. It is a music that must lull the little whale calf that travels alongside its mother. Although it is still very young, it is already almost 8 meters or 26 feet long. To help him grow, his mother nurses him. She has to feed well to produce enough milk. If the mother ingests more than 3 tons of krill per day, her calf needs almost 500 liters or 130 gallons of milk daily. I grant you, this figure is beyond comprehension. But when you know that the calf can take up to 80 kilograms or 175 pounds per day, you need at least that much to do it. Let's get out of the water and back on dry land. In front of you stands a strange and fascinating dinosaur. It is the Spinosaurus. I don't think there is a more surprising and frightening way to enter the Earth. Everything, absolutely everything in it is disproportionate. Its dorsal veil is gigantic. Just the spines on its back are the size of a man. About 5 meters or 16 feet high, it is more than 16 meters or 52 feet long. Its mass is also incredible. It weighs at least 22 tons. And that's not all. In addition to its extraordinary dimensions, it is also a formidable land predator. Believe me, no animal wanted to cross its path. It was avoided and feared by most of the species that shared its habitat. Its jaw, like that of the Pliosaurus we met, is equipped with different teeth all along its mouth. The first ones, longer and conical, are used to seize, the others shred, chop, grind, and finish the work. Contrary to what one might think, It was not a land hunter, but an aquatic one. Did you notice an important detail on its back legs? No? Look closely and observe its feet in particular. Yes, they are webbed. At least this is what scientists have been able to determine as the most likely hypothesis in view of the shape of its skeleton. Our Spinosaurus thus travels in fresh water. At the edge of a river, on the bank, or even deeper in a river, the dinosaur starts hunting. If necessary, it uses its back legs to move through the water. What you can't see under its thick, scaly skin is its skull. Yes, it reveals a crucial point about the predator's hunting method. The bones of its skull, especially at the front of the nose, are dotted with small holes. In crocodiles or alligators, we find similar elements on the skeleton of the skull. They are foramens. If the similarity proves to be effective, then just like crocodiles, Spinosaurus was probably able to sense the different pressures at the water level and thus detect the presence and precise movement of a prey underwater. This is a major asset for hunting, but it is far from being the only one. The great specificity of the animal, besides its imposing size, is also its capacity to hunt in water and on land. It thus multiplies its chances of survival. On land, its teeth are still as efficient, but its long, sharp, and cutting claws are a great help to seize and maintain a prey on the ground. Let the carnivore enjoy his breakfast and continue our journey on the continent. The dinosaurs we will soon see have many things in common. The first is on the time scale. They are all dinosaurs that lived in the Cretaceous period. Other well-known dinosaurs, such as the Diplodocus or the Brachiosaurus, became extinct in the Jurassic period. But the giants that we are going to observe managed for many of them to survive until the Cretaceous. The second common point of these dinosaurs is defined by their place of life. They all took advantage of the lush vegetation that covered the plains and forests of present-day South America. Among these unusual dinosaurs, we also find a third common point. They all belong to the sauropod family. We will also meet carcharodontids, which are also very impressive. But let's go back to our first group of dinosaurs. They are waiting for us with a firm foot, or rather with a heavy foot. The sauropods are the champions in terms of length and weight. They obviously have a large place in our ranking of the largest land animals that have lived on our planet. I propose you now to meet a small handful of them. Their charm should not leave you indifferent. In the featherweight category of the biggest sauropods, we find Futalognkosaurus and Alamosaurus. When I say featherweight, it is of course on the scale of a South American sauropod. In other words, we are approaching 30,000 kilograms or 66,000 pounds. Futalognkosaurus is a dinosaur that likes forested plains, such as the one right in front of us. They are herbivores and need a lot of food. You'll soon understand why. But back to our lovely Futalognkosaurus specimen. This herbivore is known for the specificity of its skeleton at the neck level. It forms with other species a new group, that of Lognocosauria. Its pelvis measures from one end to the other more than 3 meters or 10 feet. From the cervicals and vertebrae, the pelvis and elements previously studied in cousins of this type of dinosaur, it must have been almost 30 meters or 100 feet long, counting the tail. For the weight, the estimates oscillate around 30 tons. This is about the same size as another sauropod dinosaur, Alamosaurus. This one was almost 25 meters or 80 feet long, between 26 and 30 tons. Like other members of the family, it had a long neck and a long tail. Scientists believe that it was essential for its balance, but on occasion, it was used as a whip to repel predators. As you know, Alamosaurus is also a herbivore, but take a closer look at its teeth. They are not really adapted to chewing. The most probable hypothesis is that the giant had to swallow the plant elements whole, and it is the digestive system, and in particular the stomach, which carried out the whole work of decomposition. We are now going to discover the sauropods which belong to the medium weight category, i.e., they weigh around 50 tons. In this category, we find the Patagotitan and the Notocolossus. This dinosaur, the Patagotitan, was recently discovered, but it lived for millions of years in the Cretaceous. It far exceeds anything that has been studied so far. To give you an idea of what a behemoth Patagotitan maiorum was, here are a few details about its anatomy that should help you evaluate the size of our dinosaur. Its femur alone weighs 500 kilograms or 1,100 pounds and measures at least 2 meters 50 or 8 feet. If you add the other leg bones, hips, ribs, vertebrae, organs, muscles, and well, you are approaching 50 tons. The results are still in the order of the hypothesis, and the scientists are working on the analysis of the bones and the study supported by computer of its morphology. In any case, this titanosaur is on one of the highest steps of the podium. Its measurements are exceptional. One wonders how its anatomy was adapted to support such a massive weight and allow it to survive in its environment. How could an animal of several tens of meters or feet long and of 50 tons move with so much facility on the continent? The past is definitely full of surprises and still holds many mysteries as we speak. Come on, let's not linger. We still have a long journey ahead of us. Let's go and meet our second specimen, the Notocolossus. Notocolossus is another large Cretaceous phenomenon. From one of the bones, the humerus, which is still 1.76 meters or 5.5 feet long, scientists were able to estimate its size from head to tail tip. It measures a little more than 25 meters or 80 feet, and its weight is estimated at around 60 tons. An animal of this size and with such a colossal mass must have shaken the ground with every step. Imagine if they were still alive today. We already feel so small in front of an elephant, a giraffe, or a lion. How would we feel if we were to cross paths with such an extraordinary animal? Such measurements seem completely unbelievable, at the limit of our understanding, and yet the fossils speak for themselves. They tell us their story and allow us to realize how the animal kingdom, several million years ago, was completely different from what we know today. We have 2 more sauropods to meet. They are the biggest of all. Yes, there is an animal even bigger than the Patagotitan. The Argentinosaurus could be considered as the king of the sauropods, if we consider size and weight as selection criteria. The animals we have seen are already really huge, and yet one dinosaur surpasses them. The Argentinosaurus is a giant sauropod of 35 meters, or 115 feet and 80 tons. 80 tons! Some scientists believe that the largest adult specimens could even reach 100 tons. One single vertebra could extend over 1 meter 60, or 5 feet high. To give you a comparison, in humans, a vertebra is about 3 centimeters or 1 inch high on average. An Argentinosaurus vertebra was the size of a 14-year-old child. If this behemoth walked around our cities, it would be as tall as a 6-story building. It would take 3 buses parked one behind the other to represent the length of the entire sauropod. From the tip of its head to the tip of its tail, the Argentinosaurus measured up to 35 meters, or 115 feet long, and more than 8 meters, or 26 feet high. To meet its energy needs, knowing that it is a herbivore and must therefore eat more to cover its needs, scientists and researchers have estimated the amount of food necessary for the survival of such an animal. It seems that the Argentinosaurus had a very big appetite. It had to ingest 400 kilograms, or 250 pounds of vegetation, daily. Moreover, it lived in herd. After their passage, there was not much left of the beautiful and large South American forests. His long neck was used to reach the big conifers, but he could also sweep the ground and feed on small bushes or ferns. Since it probably didn't use its teeth to chew for a long time either, it was the stomach that did all the work. Argentinosaurus sometimes swallowed stones to aid digestion. These stones are called gastroliths. Mixing the plants in the stomach with the stones allowed them to be crushed. After swallowing a few hundred kilos of vegetation, the dinosaur could go and cool off and drink a few liters of water at the edge of a river or lake. But to drink was also to take the risk of being attacked. While drinking, the sauropod is in a weak position and becomes an easy target. This is the case for most large animals, such as giraffes. Predators know this and take advantage of this time to satisfy their predatory instinct and go on the offensive. One would think that its size and stoutness were an asset against predators. No animal would dare to attack a giant, right? But contrary to what one might imagine, large sauropods were regularly attacked by predators standing in ambush. The size is imposing, yes, but it is a dinosaur exposed to all bites. If sauropods are undoubtedly the most imposing specimens in the history of our planet, other classes and families of animals deserve to make a small appearance in this journey on the land of giants. This is the case of the next dinosaur that awaits us. A little hint before meeting him? He was one of the most feared predators of the Argentinosaurus. I let you imagine what kind of dinosaur could be to be able to attack an animal of almost 80 tons. Our dinosaur of the Paraceratherium family also lived in the Cretaceous period, along with the Argentinosaurus. It is undoubtedly one of the largest carnivorous dinosaurs known, with its 13 meters or 43 feet long, including 2 meters or 6.5 feet for the head alone. Its measurements are still only estimates, but we know that they are quite close to reality. Such dimensions, it makes you dizzy. In view of the bones found, everything led us to believe that the animal could reach about 4 meters or 13 feet high. Its femur is close to 140 centimeters or 55 inches on its own. Its weight is estimated between 6 and 8 tons, which makes it an impressive predator. It is bigger and faster than the Tyrannosaurus rex, well known by the general public. If he was faster, according to the study of his skull and the analysis of different parameters more complex, he was also less intelligent than the T-Rex. In recent years, scientists have made new discoveries and brought to light new elements about this dinosaur. They started their investigations with only 2 skulls and a few bones. Then, they discovered a 3/4 complete skeleton. We were thus able to learn more about it and confirm the hypotheses on the size and mass of this exceptional predator. Inside its skull, we can clearly see the elements that allow us to affirm the presence of very powerful biting muscles. The bite was thus formidable for the preys which crossed its way. We can also see very pronounced olfactory regions, which suggests that the predator had a very good sense of smell. It used this sense to flush out animals, then relied on its speed of action to take its victims by surprise. Gigantosaurus's teeth are just as impressive as its hunting technique. Flat and serrated, they are strong, powerful, and sharp. When the colossus grabs its prey, it slices through the flesh with ease. Many predators gnaw on the bones of their prey. Hunting parties require taking risks for one's own survival and require a lot of energy. When hunger strikes, carnivores will do whatever it takes to get food and will not waste it. They kill to eat and not be eaten. But there are also times when the bones are far too big and strong to fail under the fangs of their attackers. This is the case of our Gigantosaurus, which could not overcome the bones of the Argentinosaurus. Remember the length of a simple vertebra, 1.60 meters or 5 feet high. A femur is nearly 2.5 meters or 8 feet long. Imagine the circumference of such a bone. No tooth could get through it. But the Gigantosaurus adapted perfectly to the situation. It favored soft tissue. After attacking the muscles or severing a tendon to prevent its victim from fleeing, it had only to bide its time. A herbivore thus weakened, without being able to move or benefit from the protection of the group, is doomed to die. Another animal hunted sauropods. These are the Mapusaurus. The Mapusaurus also hunted herbivorous colossi, but their tactics are a little different. They probably use the technique of hunting in groups. Some paleontologists have found traces of several individuals very close to each other. These elements lead us to believe that in order to defeat the largest sauropods, unity was the key to strength. Mapusaurus may not have been the largest of all predators, but it was well over 10 meters or 30 feet. Moreover, it was taking on the biggest dinosaur of all time, so it deserves its place here. The teeth of Mapusaurus are quite similar to those of Gigantosaurus. We find flat and curved teeth with a serrated edge. If this dinosaur probably did not hunt alone, but in groups, it still had to be perfectly equipped for predation. Thanks to their powerful jaws and sharp teeth, they took turns biting the herbivorous mastodon. Weakened, the bites assailed him from all sides. The sauropod did not know which side to defend himself. As a result of this attack, the sauropod finally fell. The giant gave up the game. Not being able to move anymore to eat or drink, he runs to his loss. He will die no matter what. The end will only be faster. He loses too much blood. He suffers the full force of the terrible consequences of his gaping wounds. Nor is he immune to the infections that will lead to his certain slow and painful death. For the Mapusaurus, there is no question of missing this opportunity. As he waits for the last breath of his prey, he watches for the moment when he can finally satisfy the hunger that drives him. After such a fierce and relentless fight, I think it's time for us to leave and look for a more peaceful land, don't you think? How would you like to come face to face with a Titanoceratops? The idea of a tent? Then let's go. This Cretaceous herbivore looks a lot like the Triceratops, but this one is much more imposing with its 6 tons and 7 meters, or 23 feet high. We have mentioned much bigger and taller dinosaurs that were well over 10 meters or 33 feet. But I believe that Titanoceratops is worth a visit anyway, because one detail of its anatomy is gigantic. Here you are in front of the horn of Titanoceratops. It's quite something, isn't it? Even if it is only a herbivore, it is still impressive. He has a deep look in his eyes, and he is very charismatic. It must be said that the Titanoceratops is not quite a herbivore like the others. It has a formidable weapon of defense, its horn. It measures at least 1 meter or 3 feet long, with a circumference of 30 centimeters or 12 inches, but it could reach much larger dimensions. The head of this dinosaur is probably one of the most gigantic of all dinosaurs. Its skull measures up to 3 meters or 10 feet. That's more than a third of its entire body. In humans, our bodies are about 8 times the size of our faces. If we had the same proportions as the Titanoceratops before us, our head would be 4 times larger. There is another dinosaur that I would also love to tell you about. Just like our Titanoceratops, it is not one of the most monstrous in terms of size, but it is an extraordinary animal and sufficiently exceptional in its category to be one of the outstanding encounters of this journey on the land of the giants. If I tell you duck, you probably imagine a very small and harmless animal splashing around in the water. However, the dinosaur we are going to see has a duck's beak, and I can assure you that there is nothing puny about it. If sauropods are numerous to have become titanosaurs, they are far from being the only ones. The hadrosaurs also have their giants. In the family of hadrosaurs, there are the ornithopods, of which Magnapaulia is a part. In terms of size, it is even at the top of the list. It measures about 15 meters or 50 feet long, according to estimates, and can reach a weight of 23 tons. Our beaked dinosaur plays in the big league. Unlike the Titanoceratops, in the Magnapaulia, it is rather the tail that is totally disproportionate. Indeed, it represents almost half of its body. If Magnapaulia was equipped with a tail so long and so broad, it is because this one was a great utility to him in water. To propel such an important mass, it is necessary an adapted anatomy. the beating of the tail allows him to move in the water. It's time for you to progress a little more on the time scale. Here we are, in the Oligocene epoch. It is here that a fantastic being awaits us. When we talk about giants, we immediately think of dinosaurs. It is true that many of them are part of it, but they are not the only ones. Some have tamed the sky or the seas. Others, a little less known, have also walked the earth. These are the mammals. Look, right in front of you stands a member of the rhinoceros family without horns. Meet the Paraceratherium. This all-round champion of mammals is over 7.5 meters, or 24 feet tall, and weighs almost 21 tons. This large herbivore feeds mainly on leaves. It appreciates the open forests which facilitate its movements, and acclimatizes rather well to the sometimes wet and sometimes dry conditions. To survive, it needs to ingest large quantities of plants. It is therefore thought that the animal had to move regularly and over long distances to cover its needs. However, to move when one is more than 20 tons is not an easy task. Even a slow walk requires a lot of energy. To support such a weight, the legs of the Paraceratherium were equipped in such a way that the load is balanced and the shocks are absorbed. Look closely at the animal's front foot. You see its foot is flat, quite wide, and above all has 3 nails that look like hooves in the front of the foot. What you don't see, however, is the pad at the back of the foot. The pressure when walking is very important. The foot must compensate for this pressure to avoid pain and injury. An animal of this size, if injured and unable to move and follow the herd, is certain to die. It can no longer move to feed itself and becomes unable to defend itself. These different characteristics serve as protection. They are solid and robust bases to support its body mass and to put it in movement. But in the air as well, other specimens just as big and even more impressive have also evolved. "70 million years ago, pterosaurs, the famous flying lizards that are similar to dinosaurs, were parading in the sky. These winged lizards are a major evolution in the world of living things. If the animals reigned largely in the ocean, but also on the land, this time their fief is the sky. They are the first vertebrates to be able to move by flying. Some of them were still very clumsy or poorly equipped for flight. But over time, they were able to acquire new skills and survive, thanks to their ability to fly. If most of the pterosaurs had reasonable dimensions, others reached exceptional measurements. This is the case of the one I want to present to you now. It is admirable and deserves to open the ball of the giants of the sky. Our pterosaur is almost 5 meters or 16 feet high. To give you an idea of what this represents, the bird, if it moves on the ground in a standing position, would compete with a giraffe. Imagine a flying animal the height of a giraffe. It's hard to imagine for 1 minute that a bird could look a giraffe straight in the eye. And yet, look how incredible nature is. Here he is in the sky parading. Its wingspan, even from here, is impressive. It spans 11 meters or 36 feet, more than twice its height. Its beak is just as respectable, with its 1 meter 50 or 5 feet long. A question is probably on your mind at this moment. How could such a specimen fly, and especially take off from the surface This is a very good question. The most experienced scientists and paleontologists in this field have also asked themselves this question. They have worked on the subject and made an astonishing discovery. Unlike some large birds that ran to gain enough speed to take off, the Quetzalcoatlus was unable to do so. So this is not the process that the giant pterosaur used. Do you have any idea? Then look, and especially observe well the technique of this giant winged lizard. He is going to make a jump, a giant leap. He manages to take off from almost 2 meters 40, or 8 feet high. Proportionally, on a human scale, that's like propelling yourself on the spot, well above your hips. The high jump is an Olympic discipline in which many athletes perform, but they need momentum, speed. The pterosaur jumps the equivalent of half its height without the momentum of speed. It is from its tendons that it draws energy. It stretches them to their maximum and then releases them with a sharp blow. His tendon works a bit like a crossbow. It stretches slowly and then releases with a snap, which causes the propulsion. When the pressure is released, the energy released is impressive. Thanks to this leap in the air, it can flap its wings hard enough to give it enough impetus to take off. This is called a propulsive vertical takeoff. Now let's see how another super pterosaur, Jaekelopterus thambema, fares in flight. If he were to walk on the ground today, he too could admire a giraffe, but he would have to tilt his beak slightly to look into its eyes. He was about 7 meters or 23 feet tall. On the ground, it is already an exceptional bird, but it is even more impressive when it opens its wings. It deploys nearly 12 meters or 40 feet of sail. It took at least one pair of wings this huge to move the 300 kilos. Something else that strikes you about this animal? We've talked a lot about the body proportions of some dinosaurs. Look at the size of the head in Jaekelopterus. How long do you think it is? It's hard to estimate, I'll give you that. So I'll give you the... Another great flying reptile invertebrate was Piscivorous, just like the Quetzalcoatlus that we met earlier. It is the Ornithocerus. With him, the skeleton is much more adapted to the flight. It was therefore capable of some feats in the air, although, like the previous animals we met, it hovered most of the time. Its musculature is not sufficiently developed and powerful to make it fly. It took advantage of the warm air currents to move in flight. He also used another part of his body to navigate. What do you think it was? If I tell you that this part of the body is used as a rudder, and that its shape lends itself perfectly to it, does this clue put you on the way? Yes, it's the crest of its beak. Its wings were made of a membrane of thin skin, stretched and located between the front and the back legs. They could reach 5 meters or 16 feet. The hind limbs are longer and the bones are hollow, like those of our current birds, which considerably lightens the skeleton. It still weighs between 20 kilograms or 44 pounds. Besides being a pretty good pilot in the air, it was also a formidable hunter at sea. Its long jaw is equipped with vertical teeth. They are real harpoons designed for fishing. Another specificity of this pterosaur is its migration. We could see that some herbivores moved in herds, or that carnivores hunted in packs. According to the bones found in the United Kingdom, but also in Brazil, it seems that our Ornithocerus is migratory. The body of Pelagornis sandersi, which lived nearly 25 million years ago, is the size of a standing human, about 6 feet tall. We feel so small against many mammals or some reptiles, but rarely against a bird. Imagine that, if it lands next to you, it can stare you right in the eye. Its wingspan is even more impressive. Do you know the Andean condor, a vulture from the Americas, or the howler albatross, which lives mainly in the southern hemisphere? They have one thing in common: their wingspan. They are the largest birds in the world. When they open their wings, from one point to the other, a distance of nearly 3.5 meters or 11 feet separates them from each other. Yes, both would pass under a single wing of the Pelagornis sandersi, and it would take 2 Andean condors to compete with it. The Pelagornis sandersi has a wingspan of over 7 meters or 23 feet. To give you a comparison, it is the equivalent of a hang glider. Given these measurements, you might think that the weight must be proportional to its size and that it must weigh a lot on the scale. But in this case, would it have been able to fly? No, of course not. Although his size was probably a handicap, and he was neither very fast nor very agile, he was still a flying animal. It could glide over the sea and play with the currents in the sky. The study of the bones found reveals that its skeleton was hollow. This bone specificity allowed it to become considerably lighter, at least enough to fly. Scientists think that it must have weighed less than 25 kilos or 55 pounds. There are 2 things you need to remember about this giant of the sky: its flying technique and its teeth. They are both related to its survival. Let's study the first one. Its flight technique is similar to that of the howler albatross. As you can see, it hovers over the water. As you can see, it is not for nothing that it flies over the seas in this way. Its breakfast is a few meters below. The Pelagornis feeds essentially on fish. It is in particular thanks to its teeth, which are similar to those of a crocodile, that it can seize, tear up, and swallow its prey. To glide in this way above the waves, the Pelagornis uses the technique of gradient flight. This is a flight technique that allows to gain energy by repeatedly crossing the boundary between 2 air masses with distinct speeds. The lift of the air allows you to glide long enough to fish and find food. It is fantastic to see how animals have evolved and adapted to their different environments despite their imposing size. The skeleton, the musculature, the respiratory and digestive systems, or the nervous system, and the heart allow these giants to overcome the difficulties linked to their weight. The Argentinosaurus balances itself thanks to its neck and tail. The heart of the whale is powerful enough to irrigate the vessels from the tip of its nose to the end of its tail. The pads of Paraceratherium cushion the shocks due to the mass of the mammal. The Titanoboa can move quickly and easily thanks to the lift of the water. The tendons of the Quetzalcoatlus act as propellants for takeoff. Giants are definitely as wonderful as they are amazing.